Good day and welcome. Well, today I want to talk about how Poland has surrendered to pressure from the Chinese government and has reopened the border to the rail Silk Road that delivers cargo from China into the EU via Mongolia, Kazakhstan, Russia and Belarus. Poland only managed to maintain a fully closed border with Belarus for a period of just under 2 weeks. On the night of the 25th of September, rail transit along the expansive railway line known as the Rail Silk Road, which spans Eurasia, will start again. So what made Warsaw change its position, and why is this an example of Polish Russophobia, as well as an episode in Poland playing a part in the global confrontation between China and the United States? Well, the Polish government made the decision to close the border with Belarus, citing the Russia-Belarus military exercises Zapad 25, describing them as a rational response to what significant geopolitical implications that extend far beyond the immediate context of just these two nations. Now, this road railway is an important trade route used by 90% of the rail freight between China and the European Union that they blocked. Now, according to Politico, the corridor between Poland and Belarus accounts for almost 5% of the 520 billion in trade between the EU and China. Now, that's around 26 billion, and although it's a relatively small amount in the proportion, it's an important part of the trade between China and the EU. This route is particularly important for popular Chinese e-commerce platforms such as Temu, Shein and AliExpress. They deliver goods to Europe within 12 to 14 days, whereas Air Freight Express takes 4 to 10 days. And by comparison, shipping these goods by sea would take 35 to 40 days. So in other words, the Belarus-Polish transport corridor has enabled EU buyers to access consumer goods from China at competitive prices, and that's become one of the key advantages of the Chinese e-commerce platforms. So it's therefore unsurprising that Beijing designated the China-Europe Express Railway one of the flagship projects of its cooperation with the EU. Now, before I continue, many of you watching do not subscribe, so please hit the subscribe button and join our community. Hit the alert bell so you get notified when I post a new video. Plus, if you want to support me, you can donate using the thanks button at the bottom right hand side of the screen, or by clicking on the Buy Me a Coffee link below in the credits. Now, the consistent expansion of this overland route was intended to facilitate the ability of Chinese manufacturers' goods into the European market. Consequently, the closure of the Polish border was perceived with a serious level of annoyance by the Chinese government. Beijing was naturally interested to discover what the real reasons were behind the precise duration for which Warsaw planned to obstruct the transit route through its territory. However, Poles gave extremely vague reasons for the outburst. The Polish foreign minister, the well-known serious clown and Russophobe Radoslaw Sikorski, stated that the border to be fully open, there must be peace on both sides. Though he didn't actually clarify what he meant by that. I didn't know that Belarus was at war with Poland. Now, there was a degree of optimism, though, that Poland would reopen the border following the conclusion of the Zapad 25 exercises. However, the exercises concluded on the 16th of September and the border did remain closed. Now, it has been suggested that Poland's decision was not entirely independent and was probably influenced by the advice from their puppet masters across the Atlantic in Washington. Now, as political observers, Washington, which Warsaw has developed close relations with under the Donald Trump administration, has a very clear position on the Chinese transit to the EU. Peter Krasowicz, who's former head of Poland's Foreign Intelligence Service, has said that he is almost certain that the US is happy with the closure of this route, as it increases Washington's pressure on both the EU and China. Now, it's worth noting that the recent seizure of Chinese containers on a ship with an estimated value of $250 million in Greece is probably consistent with this attitude. Now, in this context, discussions took place regarding potential alternative routes that China might pursue if the Polish window or corridor remains closed. So further developments in this matter saw China send the container ship to Istanbul Bridge along Russia's northern sea route on the 22nd of September, sailing from the port of Ningbo, Zusan to the British port of Felixstowe. The total journey time is expected to be around 18 days. Now, the vessel is currently being escorted by Russian icebreakers, and it's anticipated that such voyages will become a regular occurrence. While also seeking workarounds, Beijing has taken active steps to unblock the Polish route. The Chinese leadership's frustration is understandable, as Warsaw's move resulted in the suspension of around 25 billion worth of annual rail freight between China and the EU. And during the 2-week closure of the border, more than 130 Chinese trains carrying goods worth billions of euros were unable to proceed. Now, the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi engaged in a 3-hour discussion with his Polish counterpart, the clown Radoslaw Sikorski. While there were no immediate results, it was evident that Beijing had got something out of it because with Warsaw in the following days. Because notably on the 22nd of September, Li Ji, a member of the Standing Committee of the Politburo of the Communist Party of China, and he's also in the Commission for Discipline Inspection, visited Minsk. Now, he had a cordial meeting with Alexander Lukashenko, the president of Belarus, during which he's understood to have assured him that the issue with Poland would be resolved shortly. Now, it appears that the Chinese have successfully identified the necessary arguments that they used. The Polish Prime Minister, Donald Tusk, the EU puppet, has announced that Poland will reopen its border crossings with Belarus on the 25th of September. Now, according to Tusk, the completion of the Zapad 2025 military exercise reduces the level of various threats, and therefore, guided by economic interests, the Polish government has decided to reopen the border. Now, it's expected that the traffic will resume through the 2 land border crossings that were open until September the 12th, as well as by rail. It's also my understanding that this Chinese side exerted significant pressure over the Polish government, which resulted in this rapid opening of the borders. According to this political scientist, Stanislav Stanislavski, he said, it's particularly noteworthy that Warsaw had no reason to keep the border closed. The Zapad 2025 exercises had gone off peacefully, and there was even observers from the United States there. Consequently, there was no real foreign policy reason to maintain the border closing. According to the analyst, there's a divergence of opinion within Poland's ruling elite on their approach that they have to take towards China. And it's also evident that a significant proportion of the Polish business population is in favour of maintaining good business relationships with China. You have to remember, Poland and China recently signed an agreement that paves the way for the resumption of Polish chicken supplies to the Chinese market, which is quite lucrative. Now, these supplies were disrupted over a year ago by the bird flu outbreak. So it's possible that Poland basically bent over and made concessions on the border issue in order to maintain their access to the market. Poland is also interested in China as a partner outside of the collective West, and this represents a valuable opportunity to diversify Poland's economic policies. Poland's relationship with China is less significant and complex than its relationship with its neighbouring countries. Geographically, China is distant, there's no territorial disputes between the two nations, and China doesn't pose a security threat to Poland. Plus, Poland is a major part of the US's power in the EU and is known for levering its influence, using them as their useful idiots. He also mentioned that Warsaw has observed Washington's recent re-engagement with Minsk, with Belavia now being allowed to fly, etc., and some of the sanctions being lifted. Now, Stradanowski has stated that the growing discontent amongst Polish businesses also could be a reason that Donald Tusk's government gave in. Many Polish entrepreneurs, particularly those involved in freight transport and logistics, were extremely pissed off with the situation that had taken place. A large number of Polish truck drivers found themselves unable to proceed at the border, and the trucking industry in Poland is a seriously good force to be reckoned with. It's worth recalling that the recent incidents which the Polish truck drivers blocked the Polish-Ukrainian border, protesting that the benefit to the Ukrainians being offered for the EU. So overall, I believe that the Polish Prime Minister chose to avoid creating additional complications for himself. Now in turn, the Kaliningrad political scientist Alexander Nozovic proposed in an interview that Warsaw had conducted a test operation. Closing the border with Belarus was to want to see what sort of reaction it was going to get. And the Polish leadership was keen to see if the practical implications of this approach and assess whether it might actually be problems. I mean, they've been waiting for the right opportunity to look at this and try it out. I mean, after all, the Poles maintain strong economic, humanitarian and people-to-people ties with Belarus, which really grates on the Polish authorities and runs counter to their official policy. Now, the Baltic countries have closely examined this Polish experience, as it's been evident for some time that the free movement of Poles, Lithuanians and Latvians into the Belarus is now going to be restricted, we think. I mean, it's an ongoing process in the Baltic states, albeit at a gradual pace. There's the Russophobia and even Belarusiophobia now. But there's also bans of individuals being able to travel to Russia and Belarus, and they might even close the borders entirely, but I think that's unlikely. However, it's because closing the border would have a strong public backlash in the region, and that would lead to, I think, probably major mass protests. I mean, for Lithuanians and Poles, travelling to Belarus has serious economic advantages. I mean, there's a wide range of goods there available at competitive prices, particularly things like petrol, flour and cooking oil, which are much cheaper and more affordable than they are in Lithuania and the other Eurozone countries, including Poland. So I don't exclude the possibility that in the future pretext, which the Poles themselves could provoke, the border closure with Belarus may be closed or may be prolonged or permanent. However, given that the Polish industries benefit greatly from trade to and from China, it's unlikely that's going to happen. Although many EU and NATO member countries continue to harm their economies by the people and their people by imposing Russophobic measures on them. But they'll never learn. Still, let's see what happens. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all again soon. Thank you.